Second half, we played USC defense, said middle linebacker Eric Gentry following the game. Final result, USC Trojans 42, Arizona State Sun Devils 25. And oh, by the way, USC has already surpassed their win total from 2021. Let's talk about the 5-0 Trojans' latest victory on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Marc, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you are watching on YouTube or wherever you download your podcast, we are free, and thank you. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for coming along for the ride. Without you, I'm wasting my time. And if you are watching on YouTube, do me a favor. See that red subscribe button? Click it, hit it. It means a lot. Thanks again. If not, you just like to hear the voice, you can always follow me on my Twitter at Marc. So following the team's 42-25 victory, Lincoln Riley said, "We didn't play overall in the first half the way we needed to, the attacking relentless style that we want to. Really, both sides. It just wasn't quite us, wasn't quite the edge that we're used to playing with and that we expect to play with," end quote. Whatever. You can believe the Trojans are just one more win away from bowl eligibility. But it's true. Trojans are 5-0. One more win and they're bowl eligible. Last year they finished 4-8. So for many, going into this season, getting to a decent bowl game, that was a safe goal to reach. Let's make improvement. Let's show this what was last year is last year, and this team is moving forward. Well, for some, myself included, we looked at the schedule, and we were hoping for the best. And the thought was 10 wins was probably the plateau for this team. Well, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye on offense have helped raise that bar, and real quick. Right now, USC is 5-0, and they're nationally ranked at number 6 in the country. They are way ahead of schedule for everybody. Maybe not the guys in the locker room. Maybe they believe this. I don't know. I'm sure they'll say that. I'm not sure there's too many Trojan fans who are willing to stand behind USC being 5-0. Sure. Getting that number 6 ranking, that's a hard sell for some fans to accept right now. And for some, even winning at home by 17 points isn't even good enough. But again, and you know what? Maybe in some regards, they're right. Because ASU, they're going to struggle this year to win 5 games. But let's get back to USC. They're 5-0. They're ranked number 6. And yeah, they struggled against a poor Arizona State team who's playing for an interim head coach and have, NCAA sanctions looming over their heads. But keep in mind, there's still real people putting on helmets and uniforms over there in Tempe, and USC still has to play against those guys as well as the Pac-12 idiots who pose as referees. And they're not playing against those guys in Vegas who set point spread. So if that's what we're gauging USC's performances by, let's take a step back. Yeah, sure, USC was forecasted to win the game by 26 points, 27 points, whatever the final point spread was. But, you can't look at things that way. Let's look at it this way. Things happen in games that you can't foresee happening. For instance, having an 82-yard touchdown taken off the scoreboard because of a holding call, and you can't foresee a gift interception turning into a completion, and then that eventually turns into a meaningless fourth quarter touchdown. So, USC probably should have and could have covered the spread if a couple of bounces went differently. Nevertheless, that's how football is. The ball bounces in weird ways. And again, USC's number 6. Meanwhile, in Oklahoma, they're reeling ever since Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams threw that team out with the bathwater. Or maybe the Oklahoma fans threw Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams out with the bathwater. But they're unranked. Caleb Williams was throwing the ball everywhere on Saturday against Arizona State. He had a great bounce back game. He was magical. And if you watch, you know exactly what I mean. And Travis Dye, he said, it's black magic. I don't understand it either. His ability to escape pressure is just freaky crazy. I'm adding that last part there. Being able to escape pressure and being freaky crazy. But it's true. Trojan fans, you really, even if you're not a Trojan fan, you should really enjoy what you're seeing right now, because Caleb Williams and that type of talent, that doesn't come along very often. So enjoy it. But at the same time, he's human. He threw his first interception of the season. Wasn't the greatest decision, or it wasn't even really a good throw. The decision might have been okay. He was going for Jordan Addison. I thought the throw was a little poor. That's my critique. And it was a missed red zone opportunity. Nevertheless, again, he had a solid bounce back game compared to what happened up in Corvallis. He was 27 for 37, 348 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. Not bad. Though, by the way, those 348 yards and 27 completions are a single game best for the season. Okay, so again, great way to bounce back, especially coming off his performance last week. Now, Travis Dye is not only a leader on the field, the dude sacrifices his body more than anybody else. And pound for pound, he might be the toughest guy on the team. All 5'8", 5'9" of them. But this is the second time Travis has alluded to this message after the game. And it has to do with the team of handling success and learning how to win. He said, the energy level was not where we need to be. That type of energy level will get us beat by better opponents coming up soon. We really got to get this straightened up fast. It's almost like this feeling like, okay, we got over the hump, we made it, when that's just not the case at all. You can't have any type of time when you think that you've made it until the season's over. You cannot think like that. You just have to keep pushing. You have to keep moving forward, end quote. So USC led 21-17 at the half, and they left points on the field. I mentioned the 82-yard touchdown pass to Mario Williams that got pulled off the scoreboard, and it was unfortunate the way that happened. Cortland Ford got called for a holding, and he never got back into the game after that. So, I'll get into more of that later in the week, but I'm wondering initially right now, was that the opening that Lincoln Riley was looking for between him and Bobby Haskins for that starting left tackle role? They played the entire game without Justin Dietrich, your starting right guard. The captain wasn't able to go. His replacement, Gino Quinones, he did pretty well filling in for the Cap. No complaints. Nerves probably got the better of him in the beginning. Second play of the game, he got called for a false start. But overall, I thought he played very solid. We'll see if Justin is able to go next week against Wazoo. Fingers crossed. They shouldn't need him. Again, Wazoo is no pushover, but I know what Justin's dealing with. If it were up to me, I would give it one more week and use him if necessary. I'm not in charge. After the game, Riley said his overall assessment of the O-line play was the following. I thought we were okay. I thought we missed a couple of blitzes. They had a couple of free runners on us. We got beat a couple of times with the backs, and then we got beat a couple of times one-on-one. That's just how it plays out sometimes. They're good up front. We knew that coming in that we were going to get challenged. On the flip side of that, with the number of possessions that the offense had, you don't score that many points if you aren't playing efficiently. We aren't, by any stretch of the imagination, playing bad. It was a good challenge. They won a few, we won a few, and when they won, Caleb Williams, did a good job of getting us out of it. It's true. Caleb, in the first half, and in the second half as well, his ability to evade pressure, feel that backside pressure coming, and just know exactly when to take off, extend the play. He's a special talent. And, it's not often that you're going to be able to get out there and find talent out there. But when you do need to find talent like a Caleb Williams, you need to head on over to Locked On Jobs, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We're all about free here at Locked On USC. As you know, when you're over there, all you got to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires. We're going to get that up there for you, versus the leading competitors. Yes, LinkedIn Jobs, post your jobs for free, helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I actually have an account over there at linkedin.com. I just need to get over there and update that. So that is my reminder as you look at that Locked In Jobs ad right there here on Locked On USC. Okay. So let's talk about the defense. They now have 15 takeaways and 19 sacks on the year. That's through 5 games. That'll get the job done. And, by the way, USC has now recorded 1 interception in all 5 games they play. Those are more than fantastic numbers, even for Alabama, even for Georgia. For any program that you attach great defenses with, USC is putting up playoff type of numbers, the type of numbers you need if you want to make the playoffs. Now, in the first half of the game against Arizona State, I don't know if those numbers and playoffs belong in the same sentence, because they don't. In the first half, ASU was averaging 8.1 yards per play. However, that number got reduced to just 3.3 yards per play in the second half. And they were able to get those 8.1 yards because there were huge holes and huge gaps in the defense. That run defense, I'm not sure why they're starting off slow, but they are. And they make great adjustments at halftime. But Travis Dye said you can't, against better opponents, waiting till halftime, you might be behind on the scoreboard. And I'm not sure if USC's learned how to win that from that point yet. We'll find out. So after the game, defense coordinator Alex Grinch said, quote, "We don't design the defense that doesn't have someone there," referring to manning the gaps. "So we've got to do a better job of either teaching it or not recommending that certain things get executed that way. So we've got to coach better," end quote. I'm really starting to like Alex Grinch's wry, dry sense of humor. When he says it, it's just so matter of fact. You got to really pay attention to when he's trying to be funny. That whole thing about, we've got to do a better job of either teaching it or not recommending them that they're doing it that way. That's subtle and funny. I like that. So the adjustments that, the USC's defense made following halftime resulted in this stat change as well. Not just that their plays going from 8.1 yards per average to 3.3. Check this out. In the third quarter, USC held the Sun Devils to just 14 yards of offense and minus 13 yards in rushing. And that was for the entire second half. That's good. So, the Trojans finished the first half. They had one tackle for loss, and they didn't register a sack. Well, in the second half, adjustments were made. They racked up 5 sacks. Solo, he got one of those. If you remember last week on the Locked On USC podcast, I mentioned it would be great if Solo capped off his week with one. He did. Oh, by the way, I also mentioned last week that the USC offensive line was going to have a new starter. I didn't mention it was going to be Justin Diedich, but you know where you're going to find out a lot of information. So when you're not following me over there and reading my stuff on weareusc.com, make sure you're over here and Locked On USC, because I want to get you that inside information. I might be vague and I might allude to certain things, but there's a reason for that as well. So again, they had the 5 sacks. They played tremendous defense in the second half, and Eric Gentry said it was, he kind of led that way. He led the team with 6 tackles, and he said, for me, he was playing timid. It was feeling weird playing against my old team, but in the second half, I felt way better. I felt way more confident. I just played it regular, how I usually play, end quote. Here's the analogy I'm going to use for that. It's kind of like seeing your ex-girlfriend for the first time while you're out with a new one. You're not sure how to react. You don't know. You don't want to hurt the ex any more than you already have, who's already jealous seeing the results you're having with your new girl, USC in this case. So eventually, Eric just had to kind of go savage and let the ex know why he chose the pretty girl, why he left ASU. And the result was USC's defense was much more aggressive, and they were able to turn the game around. They held Arizona State to 7 points in the second half, and those 7 points were truly meaningless. And I'm going to get to that in a second. Here's a stat to really enjoy for all of you stat guys who like to gobble it up. Oh man, sorry about that. USC has now outscored their opponent 55-7 in the third quarter this season. So there's 2 ways to approach the stat, because stats don't necessarily tell the whole story. And let me show you why. Most of that scoring came in the game against Rice, opening game. But we're talking defense, right? And they've allowed 7 points in the third quarter, period. So eat your steak, Trojan fans. Stop complaining. Yes, they don't look good in the first half. They're making the adjustments and not giving up any points in the second half of games, or at least in the third quarter. Let's make that perfectly clear. They're doing what they need to do, right? Here's another spoiled rich kids analogy. At USC football has the tradition. They have the history. people still remember, the great Pete Carroll defenses and the great teams of the past that have won championships. Well, USC fans, they enjoy the finer things in life. And a lot of them grew up that way. And some of them, their first car, when they turned 16, might have been a Ferrari. And some of those kids might have thrown a temper tantrum because they didn't get the right color Ferrari. They had to find something to be upset about. Look, you need to appreciate what you're seeing right now. Coming off a 4-8 season, this team is way ahead schedule. And I think USC fans should really enjoy how quickly Lincoln Riley and the defense has turned around. To see what they're doing, I don't think anybody anticipated this. I didn't. I think everybody was anticipating, high-scoring shootout games. And sometimes it feels like that, but again, something happens, second half, Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch, they make the adjustments, they challenge the team to do better. You got to enjoy the results, right? 5-0, ranked number 6 nationally. Kalen Bullock, let's just stay on the defense side of the ball. He had another, he had a fourth quarter interception. That was his second this season. Again, last week, I said it would be great if Kalen can. It seemed like he was lost the last few games. If he could get a little bit more involved, make an impact. He did. And he actually almost had 2 interceptions for the game. One of them off a Damani Jackson tip pass breakup. Kalen actually made the interception, but he wasn't able to complete the play inbounds. His foot stepped out before he was able to bring the ball in. Again, I think Damani, when he looks at the film, he's going to be kicking himself all over the place. He had another, he literally had a play where he gave up a fluke interception. He was falling down, the ball popped up, it landed in the Arizona State wide receiver's hands, who was laying on his back. A couple of plays later, after a couple of really BS pass interference calls, Arizona State was able to punch in a meaningless fourth quarter touchdown. That's how they got their 24 points. Look, the sooner USC gets out of this conference, the better. This is what happens. This is what you deal with in this conference. I thought the defense played well enough to hopefully get that shutout, but Pac-12 and their officials had other ideas. End result is USC still got the win. They didn't look great. It was ugly. But in the end, 5-0 is still pretty, and they're ranked number 6. Next game up, Wazoo. You're going to bet on it? You got to head on over to betonline.net because you're going to find out what that line is. Also, in betonline.net, they are your number 1 source for all of your football betting information this season. You can find all of the latest player developments, your team matchups, news, podcasts, as well as in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. They're the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I'll mention it one more time. The Trojans are number 6 ranked in the country after week 5 of the season. They were ranked number 6 last week. So status quo. They didn't move up, didn't move down. Here's the, I mentioned there are some fans who are going to question, should USC be ranked this high? Because, they haven't, they'll use the argument they don't look like the number 6 team in the country. Well, what does the number 6 team in the country look like this year? look at the teams ahead of them, look at the teams behind them. Who would you rank higher? Let's go over the top 25 real quickly. I'll start at number 1, go all the way down to 25. Alabama reclaimed the number 1 spot. Georgia came back. They almost lost on the road to Missouri, so Georgia drops to number 2. Ohio State stays at number 3. Michigan stays at 4. Clemson at 5. USC status quo number 6. Jumping up to number 7, Oklahoma State. 8 is Tennessee. 9, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's got Ole Miss rolling. Excuse me. Your number 10 is rounded out with Penn State. Number 11, Utah. Number 12, Oregon. Number 13, Kentucky. Number 14, NC State. 15, Wake Forest. 16, BYU. 17, TCU. Number 18, those guys from the other side of town, UCLA. Yeah, they had a big win. Number 19, Kansas. Number 20, Kansas State. Number 21, Washington. Number 22, Syracuse. 23, Mississippi State. Number 24, Cincinnati. And number 25, LSU. Let me throw number 26 in here just because this will be USC's next opponent, Washington State, which begs the question, should Washington State be ranked heading into this game? They faced USC in Los Angeles Saturday afternoon. I think so. Their only loss, granted, was at home, and they couged it. They gave it away to Oregon. They literally had that game won. So if you're going to give credit to Oregon and have them back up at number 12 in the country after the way they got their feathers ruffled against Georgia in week 1, tell me why Washington State isn't ranked, why LSU is, why is Syracuse is 5-0, they deserve to be ranked. Look, I'm just looking ahead at some of these teams. Make the case why Washington State isn't. Are you starting to reevaluate their win over Wisconsin on the road? Turns out Wisconsin isn't very good. They fired their head coach, Paul Chryst. Colorado fired Carl Durrell. I said that a few weeks ago ahead of time. I think everybody saw it coming. It happened. Nice guy, just not a good head coach. So the Pac-12 now has 2 openings. Arizona State is replacing Herm Edwards. Colorado is replacing Carl Durrell. And you're wondering, how long is David Shaw going to be up there at Stanford the way they're getting their butts handed to them week after week? But I digress. Look, again, USC, they're going to host Wazoo this Saturday, and UCLA actually hosts Utah. So, and then, as we know, in 2 weeks, USC travels to Utah. So is it going to be better for a Ute win at the Rose Bowl? Or, otherwise you're going to have a bunch of pissed off Utes heading back to Salt Lake City waiting for USC. Or does it really matter? As long as USC handles their own business, does it matter what kind of attitude or where the other team's mind is? I don't think so. If USC is focused and they go playing at Utah, then you're not going to play mistake-proof, but you do have to limit your mistakes. In other words, no holding calls on touchdown drives. Play within yourselves. Play defense for a full 60 minutes. Do not wait to get warmed up and come out in the second half and make the adjustments then. Look, I'm already out of time. There's still a lot to talk about. We're going to give out grades on our next episode of Locked On USC and tomorrow's episode because you get us 5 days a week. So until then, thanks again. When you're done here, head on over to wearesc.com. We got a lot of content for you. Got my Sunday takeaway. Scott Schrader's got a full recap of the huge recruiting weekend that USC hosted. You need to go check that out. Eric McKinney, Greg Katz, Chris Arledge has his musings. man, we got you covered over there because I can only give you so much in 30 minutes or less on Locked On USC. But again, thanks again. We'll see you on our next episode. So until then, fight on.